Hi everyone, welcome to the Restoring Rapport podcast. My name is Seth Hensley and this is a show dedicated to young believers pursuing the goal of healthy marriage and family. You know, we live in a world where getting married and starting a family is far too often postponed for longer than God designed and pushed to the back burner in favor of less important things. But the good news is that it doesn't have to stay this way. As young believers, we have the choice to prioritize what matters most in our lives every day and to live face to face with God and others. Every Thursday and Sunday on this show, I'll be sharing research, conducting interviews, and reviewing articles on the importance of marriage and family for society. I'll also be releasing exclusive content such as spoken word poetry, allegorical short stories, and bonus episodes for subscribers. Friends, God did not set us up to live life alone. The truth of the matter is that every minute of your adult life that you wait to marry is a minute of your life that you're not spending with your life partner. While some might be content to live with the consequences of this arrangement, I would argue that those who wish to spend as much of their life as possible with their mate are perfectly within reason and soundness of value to do so. It is my deepest hope that this podcast inspires Generation Z to pursue marriage, become the best spouses and parents the world has ever seen, serve with furious intentionality, love well, and discover the joy of hanging the moon for another. To access my sources, subscribe to the show, or get your copy of my latest book, visit anchor.fm/Seth-Hensley or check out the show notes of each episode. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 93 of the Restoring Rapport podcast. Super excited for the content we've got planned out for you guys today. As always, this is a show about keeping marriage and family as central goals for young believers and prioritizing relationship in a world of many distractions. And today I'm joined with my co-host Landon Mock, and we're going to be discussing an article by Ben Shapiro entitled "The Death of Marriage is Killing America," which obviously that title is a pretty strong language, and that's going to be sticking out to me, especially hosting a show on young people getting married and all that. And I want to get Landon's take on it as well today, but we're not going to be super rigid in the sense of we're not going to try to read you the entirety of the article and cover everything discussed as we have done in the past. Today, we're just going to use it as a starting point, and from there, we're going to talk about whatever issues come up as we're reading. So I hope you guys enjoy this article today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so Landon can see it. And without further ado, we're going to dive right into it. In the immediate aftermath of the 2022 midterm elections, a shocking overperformance by Democratic candidates, given the fact that Republicans won the national popular vote by upwards of 4.5%, President Joe Biden celebrated with his followers. One group in particular, he said, ought to receive credit for the Democratic victory, and that was women. As I said, Biden rambled, women in America made their voices heard, man. I tell you, last year, one of the most extraordinary things about the Dobbs decision was that it is about to challenge American women when the justice said they have it in their power to basically say, let's see what we're going to do. Well, guess what? You all showed up and beat the hell out of them, quote unquote. Buried in the garbled syntax was the genuine kernel of a point. Democrats' victory was achieved largely on the back of female votes, but not all female votes. One particular type of female votes. Oh, is he going to go into married versus unmarried here? I wonder. But not all female votes. One particular type of female votes. Those of single women. He is going to go there. All right. According to an Edison Research Network exit poll, married men voted Republican at a 59 to 39% clip. Married women voted Republican 56-42. Unmarried men voted 52-45. And unmarried women voted Democrat at a rate of 68-31. Wow. This makes single women a more reliably Democratic voter bloc than Asian Americans or Hispanic Americans. They're also far larger voter bloc than either. So about 41.8 million never married women in the United States, and another 15.1 million divorced women in the United States, and some 11.6 million widowed in the United States. While single women vote at a lower rate than married women, they vote as a political bloc. So they basically 100% vote Democrat is what this article's insinuating here. And as they grow as a percentage of the population, this would make them the single most powerful political bloc in America. So obviously Ben Shapiro is approaching this from the political impact of single women typically vote 100% one way. I would approach this, if I'm reading this article, what stands out to me is not actually the fact that our political climate is being shaped by singles, But instead, I'm actually concerned about the fact that we have that many singles. I mean, to me, alarm bells are going off in my head when I read, up here that there's some 51 some million, single women, some 15 something divorced, and then like another 15 or so widowed or something. I mean, that to me is what screams a problem is coming. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Landon, but to me, I immediately thought, wow, I'm so sorry we have that many single women. Not our political landscape is going to be is going to be changed, which it is. But what are your thoughts?
I mean, just an optimist look at it. I think the 15.1 million is pretty low for divorced women. That's something that I'm happy to see that it's. I mean, it's still higher than what we would like it to be, but it's not as high as I anticipated before reading this.
For sure.
I mean, there's like the 41.8 never married women, and you got to think that's only from the ages 18, up. So, it really just goes to show that people aren't getting married, and even if they are getting married, they're waiting so long. We have a whole generation of people that are able to vote that still aren't married.
Yeah, true. That's disturbing to me a bit, but also there's just the fact that there are that many who seemingly are they are unmarried, but seemingly they don't have that much interest in getting married, which is what's disturbing to me. Because if we just have that many singles, of course everybody's going to be single at one time in their life. That's something you have to go through. As you age out of adulthood. But I'm talking about if that's a permanent state and there doesn't seem to be much interest in changing that, that's what's disturbing to me. Which, based on some trends, like you said, of declining marriage into the future, the average age of marriage for women today is 27, and the average age of marriage for men today is 30. In the 1960s, it was the other way around. It was actually 20 for women and 23 for men. So we've jumped up about a decade in the years since 1960, which I find extremely disturbing. But you mentioned being encouraged by the low number of divorces there, and that's something that actually encourages me a little bit too. The 15, I think million it said, if we can go back in that article, 15.1 million divorced women in the United States. That's very encouraging to me because most of the time, what I hear is that 50% of marriages end in divorce. Have you ever heard that expression? Yeah. 50% of marriages end in divorce. Well, here's something I want to tell you about, Landon, that I found, and I don't know if this is true or not. This is totally unchecked. Have not checked this, fact-checked this at all. But the source that I got it from has been a marriage counselor for 40 years. So I would kind of trust him as a, thermometer on the temperature of the marriage landscape. But he said that the divorce rate is nowhere near 50%, especially in the Christian community, and that the statistic that people are quoting there was actually a projection. It was a projection done years ago on what we thought the divorce rate would be by a certain date. So it was never an actual measurement of the divorces happening in the population. It was never an actual measurement. It was simply a statistical projection that we assumed was going to happen. And isn't that encouraging?
Oh, absolutely. I just looked this up. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 2019, the states with the highest divorce rate, there's only 5 that are over 10%.
Wow.
Kentucky being one of them. New Mexico, Nevada, Oklahoma, Arkansas. So, I mean, for that's pretty good in my eyes.
That's amazing.
10% divorce rate in these states, and the lowest is Maine with 4.8% of marriages ending in divorce. So, I'd like to see everybody get the number down below 5. I'd like to see all the states get the number down below 5. Sure. I mean, that's a goal that we can shoot for.
Hi guys, I want to take a quick break and tell you about an opportunity that you guys have as listeners to become subscribers of this podcast. Now, in order to become a sub, all you have to do is follow the subscribe link in the show notes found in the description of each episode. Now, when you subscribe, you'll get access to exclusive material, including additional interviews, all of my spoken word poetry pieces, all of my dramatized allegorical short stories, and even more of my article readings, okay? So lots of content will be available to you that won't be available to anyone else. Subscribing to the show only costs $5 a month, which is less than most people spend on their lunch at work every day, okay? So you won't even notice it disappearing from your bank account. If you enjoy listening to the show and you're looking for an opportunity to financially support the content you care about, this is your chance, okay? Follow the link in the show notes to become a sub. Thank you so much for choosing this show to listen to. And now, without further ado, let's get back to the episode.
For sure. And here's what's disturbing to me, Landon. Why is when every single person that I talk to quotes the 50% divorce rate, every single one, none of them know those actual numbers that are saying less than 10% of the married population in every state is divorced. Yeah. I mean, and to me, that says we are perpetuating a false narrative about marriage. We're making it seem like it's not a successful way to live your life, like it's a hard way to live your life, like it doesn't have a good chance of succeeding. When in reality, 90%, according to what the statistic you just read, 90% of the married couples who got married are still married because they're not divorced.
And it's something that I'm just going to cut straight to the chase. It's lonely people are perpetuating this false narrative. In order to make themselves feel better about not being married. And what we have to realize is it's not about, well, my marriage didn't work out, or your marriage didn't work out, or my friend's marriage didn't work out. You know, we all know that through history, people have been getting married. Why do you think that you are the only one who has come up with the right idea? Yeah. That marriage is wrong. True. I mean, we've had so long in history of people being married, and for some reason you think that you are the one who's cracked the code.
Oh my goodness, so true. I mean, you think you found a better way with millions of people coming before you. You think you're the smart stuff that has what it takes to, throw that to the curb. Right. Let me just throw my food and water to the curb that everybody's been consuming, for years before I got here. Let me just throw that to the curb and choose, another option. Just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's something that Matt Walsh and them on the Daily Wire always talk about is that what is it they call it? It's like a culture of narcissism is the words they use. Where it's like for some reason this generation thinks that they are the only ones who've ever had it all together. And in order for them to feel that way, they have to go against everything that has ever been done in the history of forever. And it's like, since 5 minutes ago, we've all believed this way. And, it's pretty steady, the track that people have been going on up until about 5 seconds ago, whenever you decided that you know better than everyone else.
Yeah. Dude, that's so sad to me. I mean, and I think a lot of that comes from the idea that young, kids are taught of go against the crowd. You can be the one to change the climate of the world and all this stuff about going against the crowd. And that's even taught in Christian circles, by the way, very often so, about, entering like a public school or, a work environment, wherever you are, wherever you're placed in the world. And they present it as going against sin, the sin that's going to be so prevalent in whatever area you're stepping into outside of, your local church. And I see the concern there, and I admire the concern for kids that we have there, but I don't think that's a healthy perspective. Right. When we look at Jesus Christ in the Gospels, what he did was he stepped out into the world and sin fled instead of us fleeing, right? Whatever he touched left. Yeah. Whatever he touched that was evil left. Sickness left. Dysfunction left. Disunity left whenever he entered the room, right? Except for on issues that he was unwilling to yield about, which obviously I wouldn't ever encourage you to yield on important issues. But I'm saying he did not have the attitude of defense. He did not have the attitude of a coward hiding from sin as a more powerful foe. He had the attitude of somebody who was fixing problems.
Right.
You
And
know?
when we
So I
discuss
100%.
and teach people to be different, that's what I hear a lot in my church is we tell
Yeah.
these kids to go in and be that different and be the light. And what you end up doing if you're not very careful and very intentional with your wording, what you end up doing is teaching people to be judgmental and teaching people to neglect the needs of others. And you really have to be careful about that because, yes, we want you to go in and we want you to be different. We want somebody to look at you and say, this person, there's just something different about them, and I want to be closer to them, or I want to, I'm striving to be more like them because they're more like Jesus. But at the same time, you have to understand this is something that you have to be very careful about, that you aren't just putting up walls around you and saying, well, look at me, I'm this city on a hill, but you aren't allowed in. You can't also be a part of this community because I'm better than you.
Yeah. So true, man. So true. I mean, I've done that in my personal life, and not even, no knock on my parents whatsoever, but they raised me that way too. And, obviously that's not what they meant to do at all. They raised me to be different and all that stuff, that sitting on a hill, somebody that stands out, somebody that is different, holy, set apart, whatever you want to call it. I was definitely raised that way, and it did affect how I looked at other people. I looked down on them. There was the us and them mentality of, I'm not letting you in. You can't get to the place that I am because you haven't had the training. All that is there.
Right.
All that is there, and I've had to work through that.
I was raised that same way, and but what ended up happening in my life is I figured out that I was just being mean to other people, and I saw other Christians that I was friends with at school, and saw that people were, feeling rejected and feeling like demeaned, and there's a place for condemnation, but it's not from you. They are getting worked on. They are getting worked on in their own life. God is convicting them of their sins. Yeah, and it has nothing to do with you. You just need to be a light, and then you need to be there as a beacon to say, listen, we can work on this together. And instead of being this holier than thou, you have to be able to acknowledge your sins and acknowledge the things that you have done, and help show that to other people. That way people understand that you're not this perfect image.
Unattainable standard.
You don't look at yourself as a perfect image, because people see straight through that.
Hi guys, this is just a quick reminder that you can use the link in the show notes to send me a voice message with a comment or a question.
Yeah, for sure. They really do. And I mean, this discussion, what we're talking about right here, is 100% directly related to marriage numbers. Because when you want to become different and do something different, and all the generations prior to you have gotten married, for the most part, that was the norm, then of course you're going to want to go find a new road, right? Yeah. Of course you're going to want to pioneer into some new territory and discover something new to make an impact, So, and that's dangerous. Like you're saying, there's a place for going against the current. There are lots of places for that in culture. Some things, like marriage, like sleep, Sabbath, food, water, community, Christian community, following Christ, those are not one of them.
Right.
Those are not one of them. Absolutely. You take the Christian idea of going against the current, but then you look at the actual numbers. Christianity is the largest religion in the world.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what do you want? Go against the current there? I don't think so. So you've got to be really careful how you use the go against the current message. And that applies to marriage. Just because it's always been done. Like you said, it's a solid, safe, not only safe, it's a flourishing way to live. You flourish in that environment. And so to go against the current there and assume you can find something better is not only arrogant, but it's also not smart. And he says here, the death of marriage in America is part of a broader narrative about the death of marriage in the West. America still has the highest marriage rate among other Western countries other than Hungary and Israel, but the marriage rate among all Western countries has declined markedly over the course of the last century. So that's encouraging in a way, in the sense that we still have the higher numbers, higher marriage numbers than these other countries, excluding Israel. What a shocker! Their families are just exceptional, by the way. But he says that we are declining, and that is something that we need to be aware of. And then that declining rate, I would say, is 100% on the back of Generation Z, the youngest ones, because we're the ones who are going to be adding to that, you know?
Absolutely.
Any thoughts on that? I'm going to continue if you're...
Yeah, no, you're good.
If you're all tapped out on that one.
Yeah, you do.
He says, what marriage meant. He says, to understand why so many fewer people are getting married, we must begin with a simple fact. The very definition of marriage has changed dramatically over the course of the last century. Marriage was, for nearly all of human history, predominantly built around childbearing and child-rearing, as the Bible suggests in Genesis 1 and 2. A man would leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and they would become one flesh. By doing so, human beings would be fruitful and multiply. So fulfilling that first command God gave us, be fruitful and multiply, having children, filling the earth, subduing the earth, teaching them how to govern, the tributary that they've been set in, that is fulfilled by having children and having the unit necessary to raise children.
Yeah, I think
the unit necessary to raise children, which is marriage.
Obviously, God is intentional with his timing. We know that from our own experiences and from the Bible, and there's a reason why that was the first commandment, for us to be fruitful and multiply.
For sure.
And it goes back to something that Jordan Peterson touches on, about marriage being the foundation of society. God is here in the Garden of Eden. God is creating a people to inhabit the earth. And he's trying to give them a foundation on which they can build their own society. They can build their family. So what he has to do first is explain to them that marriage is the foundation. So what I want you to do is for you, Adam and Eve, to come together and be one. And then we're going to create a family. And then off of that family, they're able to build a greater society. But at first, you have to have that single family unit. If you don't have that foundation, the bedrock, then all the society that you can build, as soon as you get rid of that, will come crumbling down.
True. And I mean, I just think of what did he make when he did that? When, like you just said, he did not make a business to subdue and fill the earth. He did not make a nonprofit or a charity to subdue and fill the earth. He did not make a government program.
Yeah.
He did not make a tribe. He made first a family, and through the family, everything else changes. Love that. So good. He says, Ben Shapiro says, this was not merely normative. It was descriptive of the natural state of mankind. Virtually every known human culture has socially approved marriage, the joining of man and woman. Historically speaking, many cultures showed tolerance for polygamy. Almost none showed tolerance for polyandry. This is because even polygamy functions on the basis of a single man and a single woman procreating and the child being raised in the context of that dyad. The fact that the man might have several such relationships with women does not obliterate the fact that each individual dyad is indeed a dyad. There is no known culture historically that treated male-female or female-female dyads as on a societal plane with male-female couplings. Of course not, because you can't have children from those. Right. You can't have a male-male dyad creating children. You can't have a female-female dyad creating children. And children are how the species continues, even from an evolutionary perspective. Procreation is the ultimate unquestionable. You're going to procreate, right? In other words, if you're doing anything to get in the way of procreation, anything at all, that heritable characteristic is going to be, eliminated via natural selection.
Yeah.
The people who don't procreate are going to be weeded out. Those traits that aren't procreated are going to be weeded out. So, I mean, I just totally agree with that there. And what I've loved about this article so far is the fact that I don't hear even overtly Christian communities talking about the importance of procreation, marriage, family. What I hear them instead talking about is, spreading the gospel, which is great, but that's done again through procreation, having children, and raising a healthy family.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
Yeah, I just love that he's drawing attention to this.
How often do we seek out help from people who have a large family? I know for me in my life, the people that I look up to the most are people who have raised big, happy, healthy Christian families. And it's something that you really look for because it shows that they understand the true bedrock of this thing that we're trying to do in Christianity. It really does show you that they get it. They understand.
I love that. Same here, because all 100% across the board, all of the people that I most admire are married with children. Many of them have large families. They are successful in the social sense, in the what I would say God intended social sense. They have conducted themselves in such a way that their relationships are healthy. They've created a lasting impact on the world through their children. They've created great relationships with their spouse. And again, all that flows from the relationship with God and spouse.
Absolutely.
Everything else comes after that, right? Everything comes from that. Primarily, God is your source. Then your spouse is your partner. And from that partnership with God as the source comes all these amazing things. And again, like you said, all of them are big, healthy families. Those are what I see the most often. Guys, listeners of the show, we are out of time. I would love to actually continue reviewing this article, though, so perhaps next week next episode, we will come back and review the second half of this article, because I think, frankly, from my perspective, it's been just too good to pass up. I don't want to skip the content that he's got. I would like to get our opinion on it, and we'll come back with that for you guys soon. Thank you guys so much for listening today. If you would like to reach out and let the Restoring Rapport podcast know what you think of the episodes and the content we produce, do so through the link in the show notes. You can send us a personalized audio voice message in your own voice, thanking us for the content we make, or asking questions, or anything you want. We'd love to hear those. Makes us feel super connected to you. You can also follow the Restoring Rapport podcast on Facebook and Instagram if you're interested, and I will include the link to this article in the show notes for you guys to check out. So thank you guys so much for listening today, and we will talk to you next time.